Good evening. I spent my Thursday following the New York Liberty around as they continued to celebrate their first WNBA championship in franchise history and the city of New York's first basketball championship in around 50 years. This is a very special episode of Locked On Women's Basketball, where I will take you inside a very special day in women's basketball history. The Locked On Women's Basketball Podcast, it starts right now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome. This is a very special solo fireside chat episode of Locked On Women's Basketball. As you can see, there's a fireplace behind me for those of you watching on YouTube. But anyway, welcome. I'm Jackie Powell, and happy Friday evening, happy weekend. I am one of your hosts on this program. I cover the New York Liberty at the Next, and I've covered women's basketball nationally at many other places. Thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. And remember that Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by everyone at the Next, a place where we cover this sport all the time, and we tell the stories that need to be told each and every day. Subscribe now to support the staff at the Next that works oh so hard to bring you this coverage that matters oh so much. $9 a month or $72 per year. Find us at thenexthoops.com and subscribe. And remember that Locked On Women's Basketball is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and much more. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, listener. So last time we were together, I had Alexa Philippou of ESPN on, and we did a reaction podcast to just the insanity that was Game 1 of the WNBA Finals. Doesn't that feel like ages ago? Well, 2 weeks later, the WNBA now has a 2024 champion, and that is the New York Liberty. And so the Liberty are a team that I have covered here at the Next and all over the internet for 5 years now and 6 seasons. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through what yesterday was like for someone who began reporting on this team and this franchise back when they were playing at the Westchester County Center, and back when a year later they were playing in the bubble with 7 rookies and were 2-20. So in segment 1, I'm going to take you all inside the Canyon of Heroes parade that was first on the agenda for your 2024 WNBA champs. In segment 2, we're going to chat a little bit about the City Hall ceremony, some of the gaffes, some of the laughs, and some of the awkward moments from it. And then segment 3, I'm going to take y'all back to Barclays Center, where it was Club Barclays for one last time. So that is the rundown of our show. So let's get started. What is the Canyon of Heroes parade? Why is it called that? What does it mean? Well, I'm here to explain. So the Canyon of Heroes is a fancy schmancy name for the ticker tape parade that the city of New York does for its sports teams when they win championships, for major events. For instance, the COVID-19, or following COVID-19, there was a ticker tape parade for health and hospital workers that, put their lives on the line during the pandemic. And also the U.S. women's national soccer team, when they won the World Cup in 2015 and 2019, they also got a ticker tape parade in New York and were honored on the Canyon of Heroes. That is the route that the heroes that are being honored usually takes. And so this was actually really quite significant for the New York Liberty. Not only were they the first women's sports franchise to get honored on the Canyon of Heroes, but I want to share some history with you all. The first ever New York City ticker tape parade was done because of the Statue of Liberty's arrival. Wild, huh? It was on October 28th, 1886. So we were so close. We were 4 days off from it being exactly 138 years later. So this is very full circle. The Statue of Liberty arrives and is honored in 1886. And now, almost 138 years later, the New York Liberty, the women's basketball team named after the statue, are being honored as WNBA champions. It's pretty cool. So for those of you who don't know why it's called Canyon of Heroes, so the reason it's called that is this route taken on Lower Manhattan from essentially Battery Park to City Hall. It's lined with skyscrapers and tall office buildings. So it makes the street feel like it's at the bottom of a canyon, right? And so the heroes, they're in this case, the women and the men too, within the staff of the Liberty, the coaching staff, the training staff, basketball ops, you name it. These are the people that are being honored. So Canyon of Heroes. Anyway, let's hop over to some of the sights and sounds from the parade. So the first thing I noticed when I got on site was some of these signs. The fans brought some of the most creative and unique signage to support the Liberty. I'm sure some of y'all have seen online. There's the famous one. It was a graveyard tombstone that included Cheryl Reeve, Courtney Williams, Kelsey Plum, a Las Vegas Aces logo. I mean, this is very funny stuff. This is so fun. This is what sports are about. This is what you see in professional sports, and it is fabulous that women's sports are getting this treatment. So some signs you may not have seen. There was a fabulous Leonie Fiebich sign which said, "Your favorite player's favorite player." And so for those of you who love pop music like I do, that is a direct reference to Chappell Roan, obviously. And it's making the case that Leonie Fiebich is sort of, this under the radar superstar, which, to be quite honest, she is. And so many players and coaches across the league have spoken glowingly about her game, just like many artists in music have spoken glowingly about Chappell Roan's music. But anyway, that was a great sign, incredibly witty. I loved it. So before we hop into segment 2 to talk about City Hall a little bit, I do want to talk about sort of what I saw on the ground, looking at all of these floats and these buses. I had a word with the designer of these floats and buses, Rob DeVito Jr. He is the owner of Bond Parade Floats. It is a small business in New Jersey that makes a lot of floats for the New York City ticker tape parades and for the Pride Parade in New York. And so I spoke to him and he said, we had been in touch with the Liberty a year ago when they were playing the Aces in the WNBA finals. We were so excited. We were waiting to do this, but then they came up short. So for him, it was really gratifying to know that, the ideas that he was tossing around a year ago, they didn't go to waste. They weren't denied, they were just delayed, as many athletes say about their championship aspirations. But anyway, so some of these floats, they had, so the famous New York Liberty phrase, "We all we got, we all we need," was on some of the buses. The buses had a really cool, like, subway mosaic look to them. They were either white, seafoam, or black, and then the other Liberty colors accented them. Then the floats themselves either were lined with sponsors, so some of them had the Bumble sponsorship or the Barclays Bank sponsorship. And then there were others that were more, they reflected the players and their own sponsorships and partnerships. So Sabrina Ionescu had a lot of Nike on her float. There was a lot of Ionescu on her float. Breanna Stewart had Stu York City and Puma everywhere. Jonquel Jones also on her float had a lot of Nike. So did Courtney Vandersloot. And so that was sort of what those floats looked like. And so as I was covering this parade and following the players as they marched through the route, I saw sort of how they were reacting to the fans. And before we move on to segment 2, I just want to share that with some of you all. So you had Benijah Laney-Hamilton, Courtney Vandersloot, and Kayla Thornton jumping off of these floats to go and interact with some of the fans. I have been to ticker tape parades. That does not always happen. And so that just shows how special the Liberty's relationship with their fans is. I mean, there was a moment when Breanna Stewart jumped off her float as well. Sabrina Ionescu was throwing signed sneakers into the fan section behind the barricades. She was signing basketballs and running up and down the barricades, but with Stewie. So Stewie jumps off the float. She goes into the fan section. She's giving high fives to everyone behind the barricades. And all of a sudden, she sees a guy with a brown paper bag. And he says to her, "I've got the wine. Take the red wine." Stewie had posted onto social media that she was looking for red wine to have during the parade and was asking someone if they could get it for her. That is fan dedication. And that also, once again, it keeps another inside joke going. Stewie's wife, Marta, was wearing a shirt that had Stewart's head photoshopped onto the famous Betty White meme of her drinking all this red wine. Essentially, it's a visual for aging like a fine red wine, which that became a motif for Stewie once Kevin Pelton wrote the line something like along the lines of, Stewart may be aging out of her prime. And so she took that very personally and made it into this big joke and to this motif that she had been running with. So that was the sights and sounds inside of the Canyon of Heroes, the ticker tape parade. I mean, Jonquel Jones was running around wearing a Bohemian flag cape and just holding up the trophy as the confetti was coming down. It was a sight to behold. But we'll get into more of that coming up. But first, I want to talk to you all about our good friends at Prize Picks. So, Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you pay $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 in bonus money. It's guaranteed. So Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this NFL season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long. So this week, I'm looking at Justin Jefferson for more than 83.5 receiving yards and Patrick Mahomes for less than 267.5 passing yards. But also, once women's college basketball season begins, which is very soon, less than a month, I will be looking at how many points Juju Watkins scores and how many assists and rebounds Paige Beckers gets. So download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Thank you so much to our friends at Prize Picks. We really appreciate you all. And now I am back here in segment 2 for my fireside chat. I am talking all about what I saw during the Liberty's big celebration of their first WNBA championship in franchise history. So let's move on to City Hall, shall we? So usually in the New York sports tradition, and for anyone who gets honored via the Canyon of Heroes, they then also are given the key to New York City at City Hall. And there's this big ceremony where they're honored, and there's player speeches and coach speeches and speeches from ownership and just a lot of speeches. But in this case, there also was Ellie the Elephant, which we're going to have to discuss. And so what was interesting about how the Liberty started this ceremony was they showed a video recapping their playoff run, all the highlights, and then they showed a video honoring their past legends, who Teresa Weatherspoon, Crystal Robinson, Vicki Johnson, Kim Hampton, they were all there today. They were all there on Thursday. And the Liberty did a really, really nice job of honoring those folks. And a way that they did that was, one, they had their own float. Maddie, the mascot, who we have not seen in maybe 3 years, she came from wherever she's been, and she surprised fans and returned with the Liberty Legends. But anyway, this video that was played, it essentially was thanking the Liberty Legends, and it video shopped players and the legends together. And so what I mean by that is throughout the video, you saw like Breanna Stewart in the same frame as Rebecca Lobo. You saw Sabrina Ionescu in the same frame as Teresa Weatherspoon when she was, on the Liberty. You saw an interesting shot of Benijah Laney-Hamilton alongside Becky Hammon when she was in a Liberty jersey, which a fascinating choice there, like absolutely fascinating to put those two side by side. And then I think there was a Courtney Vandersloot pass, which was video shopped so that Crystal Robinson caught that pass and put it up for a layup. So just a really fascinating way to start the ceremony. Then there were many public officials who gave remarks, including Governor Kathy Hochul, who had a pretty funny gaffe. She called the timeless torches the timeless treasures. And so, of course, the timeless torches were in the audience, and they got up and they made sure that that gaffe was corrected. Then, of course, the mayor, who has been indicted, Eric Adams, he spoke for a very short period of time, and he was booed, and the fans in the audience were saying, well, where is Ellie the Elephant? We want Ellie the Elephant. And so then Ellie came out at the end, She had a very fun little dance with Kennedy Burke, and we'll talk a little bit more about Ellie in a moment. But then it got to the message of the Liberty, their ownership, their coaches, their general manager, and their players. And so, Clara Wusai began talking about her goal in investing in this team, her and her husband Joe's goal in wanting to provide to the Liberty what all professional athletes, especially on the men's side, just get typically. And so she explained why she did this and why she believed in this team that previous ownership did not. And so then you flash forward to head coach Sandy Brondello and Jonathan Kolb talking about this moment, how surreal it was, and the common theme amongst ownership, coach, and the general manager was that the Liberty want to run this thing back. They want to turn a first championship into a dynasty. They want to try to go back to back, just like their West Coast rivals, the Las Vegas Aces, did in 2022 and then last year in 2023. We're not going to talk about how difficult that is. That will be more in some of my off-season coverage, but that is the goal that they set very clearly during this ceremony at City Hall. And so I also want to play for you all a video of Jonquel Jones and what she had to say when she came up to the podium. So I'm going to show that to you all. I'm sure you're probably tired of listening to my voice. So one moment, you will hear the audio of Jonquel speaking during the City Hall ceremony.
Mean to little JJ that grew up in the Bahamas and all the kids in the Bahamas right now looking at you succeed, excel, and winning a championship? What does that represent?
It represents everything. It represents just going after a dream wholeheartedly, just taking one step at a time and not worrying about, everything else, and just trying to do what you could do and control what you can control in the moment. I took one step. I wanted to move from the Bahamas to play basketball and get an education. And then I wanted to go to college. And then I wanted to play in the WNBA. And then I wanted to win the championship. And it was all of those little steps that kind of came together that allowed everything to happen.
One step at a time. I don't want to overstep my boundaries, but what are the chances we can get a parade part 2 in the Bahamas?
Hey, oh, it's happening. It's happening. Y'all come down to the Bahamas. We about to get lit all over again.
Everyone's invited?
Everybody.
We going to the Bahamas, y'all. Congratulations, finals MVP.
Hey, y'all ready? We all we got. We all we got. We all we got. We all we got. Yeah.
So that was very striking to me for many reasons. First of all, as you could see, broadcast journalist Rose Gold-Onwude was doing a bit of a panel style to allow the players to speak, which is something that I questioned after watching this ceremony. All the energy from the parade sort of it got smaller once we got to the ceremony, and it was very long and there were a lot of speakers. And so I just wonder, the Liberty that they're talking about returning to the Canyon of Heroes, going back to back, running it back, returning to City Hall. If they do accomplish this in 2025, I just wonder, and I recommend, that the players be given an opportunity to really say what they want to say. And so I played this moment from Jonquel because she was given the time to share her story, but then she grabbed the mic herself and she sort of was like, there's something I want to do and there's something I want to say. And she got to get into the we all we got, we all we need chant, which she brought back into 2024. It was the Seattle Seahawks who did it a bunch of years ago. And so she brought it back. But anyway, I just thought from the City Hall ceremony, we were missing some of those organic and emotional moments. And Jonquel did a really good job of bringing one in. There was another great one from Breanna Stewart where she was like, Roz, are we going to talk about my free throws and my missed free throws? And, Stewie tried to really present something more authentic, but it's hard when players are being asked in a Q&A type setting. And in the next segment, I'll explain what happened when Stewie and Benijah Laney-Hamilton could just grab the mic. So before we go to our next segment, I do want to say that Ellie the Elephant stole the show, of course. She was dancing with Kennedy Burke toward the end of the ceremony. She then also told the mayor, who, as I said, has been indicted, she told him to hold her purse, which was quite symbolic, quite tongue-in-cheek from this elephant. It was her way of addressing the other elephant in the room, which was not her. And then toward the end, there was a beautiful moment where Ellie just grabbed Clara Wu Tsai's hand, and she just held it. It was a really beautiful, beautiful moment from the Liberty's, I guess, 14th player, potentially, just because they've been honoring Rebecca Gardner, who essentially was on an unofficial injury reserve list for the team. She was not rostered, but because they had her rights, she was rehabbing with them all year long. And since the W doesn't really have an injury reserve, this is sort of how the Liberty approached that. So Ellie technically is their 14th player. But anyway, we will be back in segment 3 for some reflections and talking a little bit about what I saw during Club Barclays, which happened on Thursday night. But first, I want to talk to y'all about our good friends at FanDuel. So, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return of FanDuel. It is America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page. When you place your bets, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. Thank you, FanDuel. We appreciate you. And I am back here for segment 3, where we're going to talk about reflections and one last night for Liberty fans at Barclays Center in 2024. So this interesting little party at Barclays Center was to make sure that the Brooklyn fans got their time to celebrate with the team. Some people could not skip work or school during the day in Manhattan, so this was special for Brooklyn fans, although a lot of them said that they were at the parade as well. And so it began with some more addresses from public officials, this time Senator Chuck Schumer, who spoke about how Ellie is the only elephant he wants to hang out with. Of course, that is a joke about Republicans. Attorney General Letitia James was talking passionately about how WNBA players deserve a salary raise. I'm thinking, oh man, maybe she wants to be involved in CBA negotiations. But then that turned into a performance by the Timeless Torches, a performance by the Liberty's dance troops, including the Torches. And then Ellie did her final stomp, which she really brought down the house with this because of how she knew how to transition from her final big Ellie stomp into a performance alongside Lil Mama, where they did her huge hit from 2008, Lip Gloss. I mean, Ellie nailed this transition because she pantomimed a telephone when the stomp was about to finish and when Little Mama was about to appear. It's like she was phoning Little Mama. I mean, brilliant showwomanship here. But we know this about Miss Ellie. And then there was a moment to hear from the players in a little bit of a more or less contrived, more natural way. And so it was a shame that we only got to hear from two of them. We heard from Breanna Stewart and Laney-Hamilton. You know, Stewie got a little silly and called the evening Club Barclays and, just was speaking from the heart. I mean, she said, being in Brooklyn and celebrating with you, it's what we wanted this entire season. And she just continued to thank the fans and say how much she's going to miss them. But I do want to read what Laney-Hamilton said in full because it was really from the heart. And, when I speak to Laney-Hamilton, a lot of the time she's very businesswoman-like, which makes sense. But I could just tell how much she meant what she was saying. So she said, I'm so happy to be here right now, to bring a championship to New York. I remember the first year, it was me and Sab. We were the only two that were on this team when we first got to Barclays Center. And nobody thought that we could do it. And then we added so many other amazing players. And not only us, but everyone in the building helped us accomplish this goal. So I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. And let's celebrate. Let's enjoy. She remembers those days in 2021 when she and Sabrina Ionescu were trying to figure this out. And so what happened next was then Fat Joe and Remy Ma pumped up the crowd with a concert. But then, the players were just sort of relaxing on these couches, holding little, I guess, goblets of champagne. But then who pumped the players up was none other than their coach in Sandy Brondello. So Fat Joe called Sandy Brondello to the stage and she started dancing, this Australian woman just dancing to New York hip hop music. And the players were like, oh man, if Sandy is dancing, then we need to get up ourselves. So essentially, Sandy was coaching the team without really formally coaching them. She was coaching them in fun. So it was just brilliant to watch them all have fun with her. And before we go, because our time is almost up, I do want to say that Sandy Brondello was there after the event ended for over 25 minutes, signing autographs, taking pictures, and talking to people. That means a lot to all of these people, and that just goes to show the type of care that the Liberty have in their head coach. So before we sign off, I want to take some time to reflect because, as I have said, I have covered this team since the Westchester days. It has been 5 years and 6 seasons. And, it has been an honor to do this. It has been an honor to chase and follow this original franchise as they have gone from the bottom to the top. It has been an honor to tell all of the stories along the way that have mattered. It has been an honor to trace that journey, that rich journey of all the high highs and the low lows. So I wanted to thank you all for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen today. Your favorite podcast now has a newsletter introducing Locked On Daily Newsletter, your one stop for ultimate team and league coverage right in your inbox. Sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. And also, I want to give a huge thank you to everyone who has gotten something out of all my Liberty coverage, not just this season, but ever since I began reporting on this team as a 22-year-old that was just searching for her purpose. So it has been the absolute honor of my life to follow this team on their journey from the bottom to the top, from Westchester, the bubble, to Barclays, to the Canyon of Heroes. Now, before I officially sign off, I'd like to end the show a little differently this time around. I have to end with an ode to New York. So enjoy this one. This has been Jackie Powell signing off. And this is for New York.
Always a little down. All melted away. Right through the very heart of it. In old New York. If I can make it there, I'll make it anyway. It's up to you, New York, New York, New York. I'd like another Jackson.
And that's our show.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.